Welcome back to College Football Addiction, game of the week type stuff. Talking again with Blake Ruffino on it. We got AYS Sports and the Ruffino and Joe show. Let's make sure we say it the right way. Although, shout out to my guy Joe. Hopefully Notre Dame gets upset this weekend. Not going to talk about that though. I intentionally did not invite him on this week. He can talk Army with me in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
But Blake, how you doing, buddy? Game week.
Yeah, game week. TJ, it's funny, man. I really enjoy bye weeks. I think for people like us, they think that we just sit around all day and do absolutely nothing. And it's good to get a recharge. We had a little birthday this weekend for our 2-year-old Jewel. So we're able to kind of revamp. It was good to just sit there and watch college football outside. We have a TV in our back patio, and it was cool enough. And I'm like, man, is this what everybody else gets to enjoy, when you don't have to cover teams and watch games? But it was really good. And, man, it's here, and it's a big week for LSU and Alabama both.
Yeah. I don't know if anybody truly enjoys college football. Everyone is miserable. Maybe Oregon fans and Miami fans are happy, but they're just happy this week. Give them 2 weeks and they'll be pissed off about something.
Yeah,
all right. So this game, I feel like we keep getting game of the weeks, and LSU's kind of part of them here now twice in the last three. And the only reason they weren't last week is because they were off.
Right.
We talked about A&M already. We gave an early look at this game already, and we kind of talked. We know how big this game is for the winner. The winner's probably in the playoff. Not a lock, but probably in the playoff if they can get this one. And then obviously you got to take care of business down the stretch. But biggest test left for both teams. So we know how big it is. I don't need to spend time talking about that. What if LSU loses this game? Brian Kelly's not on the hot seat. They're not making a change. There's none of that, right? Fans are going to call for it because fans are fanatics. We get that. But how bad is it for LSU if they can't get this thing done?
Yeah, just like what you said. TJ, I think that when you look at a place like LSU, you got to look at the national titles that they won. Saban in year 3, Ed in year 3, in year 3. So I think that would be, TJ, what they would talk about, right? Like, hey, man, you can win it here. What's wrong with you? Now, the difference between those three and Brian Kelly is that he started off with 39 scholarship players, the portal, NIL. It's a big difference. But I think that, TJ, I don't think LSU fans, I don't think they're expecting a national championship, right? I think that they, even coming into the season, knew that was not going to be the case. But I think what they did expect was, hey, man, are you a top 12 team? And if you make the playoff, you can garner a lot of respect. But if you're going to another Cheez-It Bowl or Duke Mayo's Bowl or whatever it is, that's going to be the indication of you're in 9-3 purgatory.
Yeah.
And that's where they don't want to be. So I think it'd be very bad. And look, even TJ, here's what I've noticed with a coach like Brian Kelly: more than a local issue, it's a national issue. Because every time he loses, you would think that he is the worst coach to ever exist. So I think that it won't be just a local level thing. I think it'll be a national level thing that will give it more attention if they're unable to win.
Yeah, I agree with that. It is good that LSU fans probably realize they have to get incredibly hot to go on a run in the playoff. But again, just making that playoff, the first year of a 12 team, a schedule that's set up fairly well for you, a down Alabama team, all the ingredients were there. And I know you lost the Heisman Trophy winner, which shout out to Jaden for absolutely bawling once maybe he just can't play well with me in attendance, because I was at both Florida State games. I was at that. I was out. Maybe I'm the problem, Jaden. I was at the Bucs game. You know that? I was at the season opener. He just can't play when I'm there. I'll never go to another JJ.
Well, we're going to get you banned.
Yeah, I'll never. I like him so much, even though he's been playing in my teams. I like him so much, and not just because my teams beat him, but I do feel bad for being there in attendance when he's playing. I'll never go to another one. Somebody give me Super Bowl tickets, and I'll be like,
you will never be allowed back in this state. That's for damn sure. But I'm with you on that. Look, TJ, to your point, though, here would be the thing that I would say here is that if LSU wins out, they're in Atlanta.
Yeah.
Okay. So the tiebreaker. So here's the real thing. Okay. If they beat Bama and win out, They would have the tiebreaker over Georgia beating Alabama. Okay, and A&M and Texas are going to figure it out themselves. So either those two teams are going to lose in Texas and A&M, and then it's you and Georgia if you win out, or Georgia's playing one of those schools. Right, like I mean, that's where you're at right now. TJ, it would take a lot for a team like Ole Miss. Teams would have to lose 2 more times. Like Georgia would have to lose 2 more times.
Texas A&M would have to lose.
But Georgia and Ole Miss play this weekend, so they're playing themselves in or out here. So, look, there's so much to look at when you're LSU. Like if you do win out, hey man, not only are you making a playoff, you're going to Atlanta, right? Like I mean, that's still the thing here. So. I think when LSU lost to A&M, people were like, nope, done, over, season over. It's not close. And TJ, I could tell it by LSU's fan base, by the viewership. They're like, yeah, we're not making a playoff. And I'm like, dude, it's not remotely true. And even to your national championship run thing, just to throw this out there, what do you mean to tell me that you can't beat Georgia? I mean, Carson Beck's thrown 9 interceptions in the last 4 weeks. I mean, like, what are we discussing here? So I think every team besides Oregon who you wouldn't play until the playoff is probably beatable at the current moment. So, I mean, even then you probably could.
Yeah, I agree. I don't love the 12-team playoff. It'll be entertaining as hell. Like, I can't wait to watch it. But I don't love what it does to our sport. I don't think you should be able to lose to Vandy and go to the playoff like that. Just like, and lose multiple games and still go. And some years we're going to have a 9-3 team in there. I don't know that it'll be this year, but we will have that at some point. And so I don't love that. But I will say this is going to be a really good 9-3 or a really good playoff because nobody is just Georgia from the last couple of years ago or even Michigan from the last couple of years. Like this is going to be fun.
Well, I can make the argument too from an LSU perspective. Let me just throw this out there. Okay, so now they're facing at the time that they played their 5th ranked opponent. Okay, 5th. It's almost most in the entire country besides UMass, by the way. UMass is 1, LSU's 2. I mean, UMass is just playing everybody in the SEC at the current moment. So here's the thing. TJ, I look at a team like in the Big 12. You mean to tell me that you wouldn't take LSU over any team in the Big 12 right now, and they got to get an automatic qualifier? Yeah. Boise. Like, I mean, there comes a part, TJ, where I'm like, it's I hate to bring this up. It's the FSU analogy, right? Like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
Like what are we doing here to some of this? But I mean, look, man, I think that the Big Ten and SEC are going to get maybe 4, maybe at max one of them gets 5 teams in here, and they deserve it, man. I mean, it come on.
Yeah. So on this game, have your thoughts? We previewed it a little bit last week, and so we don't have to re-dive into all those questions, and we won't make this super long. But just thoughts, big picture on this game, where your biggest concern maybe lies, where you think LSU is able to take advantage. Can they get the running game going? Just what are your big picture thoughts on what is coming for LSU this weekend against Bama?
So we did talk about it, but I purposely on any show I did or anything that I did, I didn't go into detail. TJ, here's the thing about Bama, okay? Bama, they're not the Bama under Saban in the sense of what they do up front. They're 82nd in the country in sacks allowed with a running quarterback. They've gotten very confused on their offensive line that you can get to them, and LSU's 6th in the country in sacks. So I think that is a big deal here. In reference to why I think that there's one specific area that you just have to watch. If LSU can run the football, which Alabama is 62nd in the country in run defense. Saban never had a team worse than 50, TJ, just for what it's worth. Never, okay? And so teams have been able to line up and run the ball. Now, I'm not asking, or I don't think any LSU fan would ask to run for 200 yards. But the problem has been for you is that you can't run the ball. If you can't line up against this Bama front and run it, TJ, you have a problem. And that's just the bottom line. And I do think that LSU presents Alabama something that they haven't seen. I mean, Carson Beck is one thing, but Carson Beck and Garrett Nussmeier is an example. One team they faced and one team that they're going to face, they have a lot of things in common in reference to turnovers. But, TJ, I would take that wide receiver room for LSU over Georgia's, and it's going to depend on, number one, if LSU sustains 4 or 5 yards per run, I think that that's going to open some things up for Garrett. So, like, there really is, TJ, if you want to boil it down to one thing, if LSU can come out and establish a running game, man, I'd feel really good. But if Bama can stop it and force Garrett Nussmeier to make many decisions, he's going to make a couple of bad ones, and it's going to cost LSU a football game.
So when you look at it this weekend, Bama just struggling against the run, and LSU, like, who, is it on, where does the responsibility lie here? Is this an offensive line thing? Is this a running backs thing? Is this a coaching thing? I know the answer is about to be all of the above, but like, where does it really lie the most with? Like, what needs to go right for them to be able to run the ball?
Scheme. I would say if you're asking me the number one thing, I think running. You have an air raid OC who, look, man, I like Joe a lot. They're just doing one specific thing. They're running zone read with a quarterback who's scared to run the ball. I'm just going to call it what it is. And I think more than that, TJ, you don't have that electric back, and the electric back you have as a freshman. So you're having to ask him to do something that he has no business doing, right? And so if there is a position group, TJ, that like, let me give an example. Even because here, and I don't want to defend an offensive line, even though I played it, but I need to. There's got to be a time where you see a team like A&M or Michigan last year, or Georgia. TJ, you got to have a back that just runs right at him. Benson last year for Florida State. Yeah. Sometimes you just got to run right at him, and you got to knock somebody's head off. That's what being a running back is, and LSU doesn't have that. So you're right. It is a lot of things above. I think scheme does come a big part of this. But, man, I think that if they absolutely wanted to stay with the run, that they'd have success. And let me explain. LSU is 29th in the country in EPA per rush play. What does that mean? So when LSU runs it, TJ, they're a top 30 unit. The problem is they're 130th in the country in rush attempts. They're dead last in the Power 4 in rushing attempts. So they think that they can't run, and it's a lie. You can run. You're choosing not to. So it's not so necessarily that you can't do it as much as that they get too scared to do it, and they better run this week, because if you don't, TJ, if they don't have over 125 yards rushing, they're losing. Bottom line. You can't do this against Bama. And here's another thing. Even in the run game specific, if you look at schematically what Bama does, they're going to play too high man. So what does it mean? Two safeties are going to be back, and they're going to play man coverage around. So what happens is when LSU runs verticals, the backs of the DBs are going to have to be turned. Or if they don't turn, then you're going to get beat. So you got to do one of two things. The God's honest truth is, TJ, 12 times against Alabama this year, 12. In both of their losses, 8 times they had a quarterback in Nico Imalava and Diego Pavia that ran for first downs on critical third downs when they were throwing the football. Because when you play man-to-man coverage across the board, your quarterback's got to take off. Yeah. Here's the God's honest truth, too. Whether LSU fans think I hate Garrett Nussmeier, it's not even remotely close to being true. You got to run the football. TJ, we live in the world where if you're not being a dual-threat dude, then you're going to get beat. Name a pocket passer that's elite right now. Because you would say Carson Beck legitimately. Well, Carson Beck's not elite. Yeah. So today's game has changed, and you got to take those yardage. You got to take those yards and yardage. So there's a lot of things in the running game that they got to do, and if they can't establish it. Now, something that's interesting, I'm going to throw this out there to you. I threw it out last Thursday on on AYS, and I'll throw it out here for you. Don't be surprised if Brian Kelly has completely gotten his hands involved in this running game, and it's about time. Yeah. Because, TJ, here's the thing that I hated, like from Ed Orgeron to Brian Kelly. Ed meddled too much. Brian Kelly is too smart not to meddle, right? Like, call him whatever you want him, okay? The dude's too smart not to have his hands more involved in stuff. It's the bottom line. Schematically, you could have a conversation with Brian Kelly for an hour and like, all right, like this dude knows exactly what he's doing. Like, I mean, come on. So I would not be surprised, hint, hint, wink, wink, that Alabama needs to be very alert in the running game early because I think LSU is going to throw some things at them that they haven't shown on film all year.
Looking at the other side of the ball, when Bama has struggled, they have struggled offensively. Tennessee was able to hold them down. Tennessee's got a really good defense. South Carolina held them under 30 in that game. And even one of those was a really short touchdown after a South Carolina turnover. South Carolina's defense was really good. Those are two really good defenses. But, man, USF held them down for about 3.5 quarters and did a really good job. Vandy held them down for a half. And then Alabama put some points on them late, trying to play catch-up. And I know LSU's defense has taken a major step forward. We've talked about that under Baker. They're still not to the level, I would say, of South Carolina's or Tennessee's for sure.
Not even close.
But other defenses like Vandy's, like USF's, Georgia's got a great defense too. Georgia obviously held them down in the second half. There is a path to holding this Alabama offense down. I don't know if that's more on – it's a combo, right? Nothing is ever just in today being election day. Nothing is ever just one-sided. It's always a combo of factors. But I think you've got the factor of can LSU's defense rise up and play their best game of the year, one of their better games of the year, and can you kind of count on Alabama to make some of the mistakes that they've made? Because they've shown a propensity. We talk about Nussmeier and Beck and these other quarterbacks making mistakes. Alabama's made plenty of mistakes to stop themselves and slow themselves down. And so that's where I look at it and say, well, if Alabama plays their cleanest game offensively of the year, it's tough to see LSU winning. But if Alabama plays like they've played most of the year, and if LSU's defense can raise up just a little bit, then that's where I think that you can have a path to slowing them down. To me, it's a race to 28. If either team gets to 28 or 30, somewhere around there is your magic number, 28, 30. If you tell me right now that Alabama's only scoring or doesn't get to 28, I'm taking LSU in this game. Now, they'll win 27-24 because I said that. But to me, that's
I'd take it. I'd take it right now.
That's the number. To me, that's the magic number. And what is the path to LSU's defense getting there? Well, I mean, shoot, what you just mentioned. If the offense can run the ball a little bit and limit possessions, shoot, that's your best defense. Is not giving. You cannot score. Well, you can. I don't want to jinx anything too quick.
Yeah, don't jinx Garrett Nussmeier here, brother. I'm just gonna say that.
Milroe cannot score if he doesn't have the ball. We'll say it like that. And so there's a path, but the defense does have to play a good game on Saturday.
So it's interesting. I think that when you break their games down, so because of a bye week, I got to watch all their stuff and numerous times. I feel like I know Alabama more than LSU. I feel like I know Bama more than any other team in the country not named LSU because I got 2 real weeks to watch them. TJ, they're 129th in the country in penalties. The reason they've been bad offensively in moments is because they keep shooting themselves in the foot. And they did it last year. They're doing it again this year. And the times that Alabama won big games, Georgia both times, they didn't shoot themselves in the foot. The question for LSU is how do you stop a quarterback that can run? You haven't been able to show that you can do it. And look, last year you let Milroe run all over you. So I think that there are a couple things involved here. TJ, you have to make Milroe stay in the pocket, and you have to make him beat you throwing the football because he's going to make big plays, but consistently throughout the night, he's not going to beat you through the air, right? He's not going to light you up for 350 yards and 4 touchdowns. Now, if he does, you tip your cap and you say, good job, man. I mean, you did something that you're not used to doing, but that's what you got to do. You got to stop him running the football. But, TJ, the biggest problem with Alabama right now is not talent. It's discipline. They weren't a disciplined team for Kalen DeBoer. They weren't a disciplined team under Nick Saban. It's not a DeBoer thing. It's a player-led thing. And you're right. If they play clean, they could come into Death Valley and win. The problem is that I have 24 games now where they haven't done that. TJ, they are the worst team in the SEC over a 24-game span in penalties. The worst. It's not and it's not remotely close. If you go from a national perspective, we're talking about this tonight. The lowest rated team SEC-wise is 100 at Tennessee. Alabama's 130th out of 133 teams over the last 24 games in penalties and penalty yards. So they would have to do something, TJ, that's out of their norm and not play disciplined football. So until they show that, you got to count that in there. But you got to make Jalen Milroe, what Tennessee did in the second half, you got to make Milroe beat you through the air. And if you make him do it enough, he's going to make a mistake. And, the Tennessee game was you kept shooting yourselves in the foot. But TJ, a lot of that is predicated too off of their mistakes are coming off of. So there's twofold in that. The mistakes are coming off of, though, that their offensive line is getting beat and they're having holding penalties. Okay, and it puts Milroe in a bad situation. And I think that as good as as talented as their offensive line has been, they're not very disciplined. I don't think that their assignment correct a lot of times. And Blake Baker wants to send pressure and heat. It's just what he's going to do. It's why they're sixth in the country in sacks. So I think that the advantage for me is that if you get Milroe in 3rd and 6 plus, TJ, LSU is going to feast. The problem is that you just cannot let him beat you running the football. That's it. So you got to be good on 1st and 2nd down. And it's going to be interesting to see what Blake Baker does in a bye week. I mean, TJ, LSU's better coached defensively now than they were last year. I don't think that's a hot take at all. Yeah. So we'll just have to wait and see. But there's a lot of TJ. They're both two evenly matched teams, ironically. Okay, on a lot of things that they do. But I think that when it comes down to it, whoever plays the cleaner game, and I know that's like, oh, that's coach speak. No, it's because both teams have had massive issues in penalties and penalty yardage. That the team that doesn't makes the least mistakes is probably going to win it because the margin of error is just so small.
Yeah, you took LSU last week when we chatted. Are you still on that side? Are you still leaning that way?
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to lean it just because of where the game's played. Okay. Again, I would say that if this game is played in Tuscaloosa, I flip it and go Bama. Yeah. TJ, again, I just think they're very even in a lot of areas, right? Like, I mean, I'm looking at the stats right now. I mean, I don't know where they're not even. I mean, there's one area LSU can't run the ball, but their run defense sucks. Okay, so that's one area that they go away. I mean, LSU's better in getting to the quarterback, and Alabama's 82nd in sacks. I mean, there's some things there. I look, man. You can call me a homer all you want to. Call me a homer. The last time I picked LSU to lose a game at night was against Auburn, Ed Orgeron's last year, and they lost. TJ, just doesn't happen. You'd have to play the odds. They're 95% since 2000 and winning night games. No. At Bama and Troy and Auburn. So everybody in the state of Alabama, they can come. And so, I mean, well, we're playing Bama. So teams from Bama can come in here and win. Everybody else gets their asses beat. I mean, and that's just the truth. So I think because I said this last week. I'm going to say it again here. Now, I said it. I don't remember where I said it, but maybe it was on my show. I don't know. If there's an emotional take in reference to how about the fan base, TJ, they're ready. Yeah. Like listen to your boy. If you think that this place has been chaotic in other situations and areas, good luck this week. And look, I'm just going to tell you, they got a lot of frustration that they want to take out on Bama, and it's game day. TJ, how does Milroe react to what he's going to hear on 3rd down? Because TJ, no game has ever been sold out this early before the game started. I mean, it's just going to be chaos, dude. Ultimate chaos is going to happen in Baton Rouge on Saturday. So we'll see. I mean, that's the reason why I lean the fan base right now, if that makes sense. Yeah. When everything else is so even, I lean to this game being at home.
It's such a hard game to handicap because of both.
Oh, I'm not betting it.
So high at times, both teams so low at times, both teams' propensity to make mistakes and turn the ball over. And, it's hard because of that. It's hard to know. I mean, how do you predict who's going to make the bigger turnover and when it's made? I mean, that's impossible to predict, right? Like that's not a thing. And so, I'm with you. I think I lean LSU here. I'm just watching Alabama on the road. It's just been different. If you thought Knoxville was a big deal, welcome to Baton Rouge, right? Not to upset any Tennessee folks, but I do think that that's kind of the way I lean too. And
they've struggled on the road, TJ. They've struggled on the road, man. I mean, listen to this. Against Tennessee, they ran the ball for 75 yards. Against Vandy, they ran the ball for 84 yards.
Yeah.
I mean, I think LSU's front is better than Vandy's. Sorry, I just do. So,
hot take.
Yeah, hot take. But what's funny about Vandy, man? They're top 25 in run defense. So
maybe not too hot.
Maybe not. But I mean, look, I'm just going with the fan base here, man. I cannot pick again. I just cannot do it. It's against my DNA to do it, to pick them. If this game were at 2:30, TJ, I'd probably lean a little bit more Bama, if I'm being honest. This game being at 6:30 in prime time, I can't. Brian Kelly's 13-0 at home in night games at LSU. He's lost one game at LSU at home. One. And so I'm like, okay, so he's 20. If you would have told me that Brian Kelly, when he got hired at LSU, would be 24-1 in 3 years at home, I'd be like, all right, so Bama came in here and beat him, and you beat him once.
Yeah.
I mean, like, that's what I'd say. Here we go again.
Yeah. It's going to be a fun one. I'm thankful for the time of the kickoff. It is at the exact same time that Florida State and Notre Dame kick off. So it's a very thankful time for me to be able to be more focused on that. But Blake, we already kind of talked about it, but where can people follow you? Where can they find your work, buddy?
Yep. Ruffino and Joe Show will be doing some stuff here today. You can go, unless you want to watch political stuff, you can just go over to Ruffino and Joe Show and just listen to football all day. Our AYS Sports will break down a lot of LSU stuff in Alabama again here tonight.
Blake, I appreciate you, man. Thanks for spending some time with us, buddy. We will talk to you soon. Good luck this weekend.
We ended just in time. Here comes the kids right now. So.
Every time, bro.
Every time, man. I appreciate it, TJ. We'll talk soon, man.
Hey, buddy.